Hey guys, you made it. Welcome aboard. Woo! Today I am so thrilled to share with you a conversation that I've had with David SEREDA. David SEREDA has discovered 9 hyperdimensional planets in our solar system with the help of his beautiful wife. He has also been tracking 3I Atlas as it moves through our solar system. And guess what? His findings show that it is absolutely intentionally and intelligently navigating its way through our solar system. It gives me chills, and it's just been incredible to tune in, pay attention to his findings and his research. In our conversation today, he speaks about meditation and the role that it's had on his personal visions, and also the importance that it plays in fortifying our own spiritual bodies. I, again, can't tell you what a beautiful divine masculine this human is. He embodies and just emanates this divine soul intelligence. I hope that you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Please know that I love you very much, and there are good things ahead. See you soon. See you on the flip side. Okay. Okay, David. So before we hit record, you were talking about the what I guess drug cartels and meditation, and how we've made a conscious choice to be supporting these large pharmaceutical companies versus taking healing into our own hands.
Yeah, I think where this started, let's go back to the 60s revolution, because as a kid, I grew up with, there's four of us, four brothers. I mean, I was born in 1961 and we're all 1 year apart, and our dad is getting a PhD in psychology at Berkeley in educational psychology. He was an assistant professor back then, and his thesis is the healing and learning effects on deep relaxation and meditation. So this is a clinical study, so that I mean, it's not. I mean, it went on for years actually. My dad writing his thesis and doing this study. So I grew up with that, and even though we were all Catholic, baptized at birth, we were introduced to yoga and meditation techniques. I mean, I remember when my dad had, all these hippies over at the house. You wouldn't know my dad was a hippie by even looking at me, but my dad was a super groovester into, long hair and the beard, and, going to India and studying with gurus and taking us along, like taking us to yoga retreats and with a meditation master, which I can't even believe what that is, because as a kid, my mom divorced my dad in the middle of the free love movement in the 60s because that was too freaky for her. And then she remarried a military man, David Cooper, who was a wonderful stepfather, the best stepfather. And so eventually she divorced him and then sent us back to our psychologist dad, who was then living in Vancouver. And we got introduced to this stuff, yoga, meditation. And then, he would have these groups in the house, from everything from emotional release therapies to wild meditation and breathing techniques. And as my dad did more studies in different teachings, like when rebirthing and breath therapy was really popular in the 70s, then he got us all doing it. And my brothers and I are doing this deep breathing stuff and trying to clear, our own emotional trauma of growing up in the middle of all this and losing our mother. So going from, if you look at these modalities, and I'll go deeper into them, and how they ultimately led for me personally to blinding visions of Jesus Christ, the person that we call Jesus Christ, and you compare that against the backdrop against millions and millions of people in North America, I'll include Canada in that, who have either alcohol addictions or serious drug addictions. This Rand Corporation study I sent you, I think it's over $175 million a year that Americans alone are spending on illicit drugs,
Per
and
billion.
we're supporting the cartels. I mean, this is
Yeah.
billions, right? You can build whole cities with this money. Every year, we decide what to do with our little bit of money, and instead of what I'm saying, instead of feeding the cartels, which have extended themselves into human trafficking on top of illicit drugs, being the fifth largest employer in Mexico, actual employer, just think about that. Our addictions, because we can't seem to, in our culture doesn't have these modalities that allow us to get into these higher states of consciousness naturally. Our interpretation of the Bible also doesn't take into account what does it feel like to be plugged into God. Like, it makes God look like, yeah, it's a religion. We have a list of laws that you have to obey. But where is the good feeling and the love that people talk about in the story? And what do we get out of participating in a religion? Like, what are we going to experience? And why are participants of religions in America and Canada, let alone the rest of the world, needing to be addicted to substances, including excessive use of alcohol,
Yeah.
right? Why do we need this stuff? Because we can't cope, right? Like, cocaine is a massive addiction drug. So are all of them. Heroin, now fentanyl, which is a drug that takes away your experience of your body, takes away all the pain in your body, and makes you feel like you're floating, right?
They look like zombies sometimes. I feel so bad. My heart just goes out
Oh yeah, they're
to
suffering so much, those
suffering
people.
so bad. So,
So
yeah.
instead of going to the suffering, we go the cause of the suffering. We go to, okay, and how did it happen? We go to, okay, there's a problem. We've got to cut their supply, right? So they're feeding the supplier. The supplier ultimately leads to cartel. But if in our religions we looked at the metaphysical practices that are extant in our religions and we really practice them, and I put this to the test, right? I mean, when I was in high school, yeah, I smoked marijuana. Oh my God! And I took, I think I took cocaine once, and I just did jumping jacks with my friends, and I thought, okay, this is stupid. I can do jump. I don't need this.
Yeah, I
I was
tried. I
already
didn't
a
like it.
meditator, right?
Yeah.
So I could contrast as a beginner meditator what you perceive and feel compared to what I feel now is off the chart. When I meditate now, there's no drug on earth that can touch this. There's just no drug. And so I look at the situation and I look at, yeah, we have these huge cartel and the recent, military activity in South and Central America and Mexico, because the U.S. military is down there trying to remove cartel everywhere. It's not just Mexico, in concert with the Mexican government. But we're the end users. They're supplying us because we want it. People forget that part. Oh my God, there's wars in Mexico, and no, we're the ones feeding them. So why do we need this stuff? And then you go back into, if you're going to heal, to bring people back to a holistic religion connection to the metaphysical practices that even the Christian religion slowly removed by by illegalizing Gnostic gospels that surfaced that show real practices that the earliest Christians were doing, which were frequency activation practices, actually. So,
So, and these are
yeah,
found in the Bible, these practices, as you mentioned, and at some point in history, I'm just kind of repeating what you
yeah,
said.
yeah.
And at some point in history, they were abolished or hidden or redacted from the Bible.
Well, we lost touch with them. Like for example, I'll give you an example.
Okay.
So there's a gospel called the Gospel of the Egyptians, which is a Christian manuscript. Its other name is the Gospel of the Great Invisible Spirit. And of course, if you study the history of Christianity and the migration of it, it starts out as a small Jewish sect for which Jesus is referred to as rabbi, and he's a reformer because he's showing us as divine incarnation of as Son of God that there are mistakes that need to be cleaned up so that people will have a better connection to get back to God. And as I'll demonstrate more and more in my own personal journey and my daily practice of meditation for 50 years, every day. Like meditation is everything to me. Every day I meditate, and every 2 weeks I switch my meditation to a 45-minute deep breathing meditation, which means I'm doing a deep breathing practice for 45 minutes every day. I've been doing this for over a decade. And then I incorporate frequencies. So in the Gospel of the Egyptians, which is really something that looks like it was written by early Egyptian Christians. At the time of Moses, the entire Palestine is Egypt. So the mid Palestine and lower Syria is New Kingdom Egypt, and then what we call Egypt today was Egypt. In fact, the Egyptian kingdom was an enormous kingdom. In the 4th century BC, Alexander the Great comes in with his Greek armies and conquers it. And it becomes Hellenized, which is why your Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, are written in Greek, and they're not written in Aramaic, which is a Syriac language that Jesus and his mother and his father and his brothers and sisters all spoke. Yes, Jesus had brothers and sisters, but we'll get into that later because I could go into a million directions because my mind has all these index points.
So you've
Yeah.
been meditating every day for 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible. And it has led to what experiences have you had? Like what's opened up for you that maybe someone in the 3D or non-spiritual or a non-meditator, what has it done for you in your field?
Well, one now, so I'll go from now what happens every day and I'll go back to the beginner level, right? So, and how these practices were really evident in most of our religions actually, and how we stepped away from those daily internal rituals and we moved into quicker, let's get it over with on Sunday, forgive me my sins, and then I'll get on with my life, and then I'll feel good because my sins have been lifted, and then I'll sin all week, and then I'll come back. And I mean, that's a Catholic ritual, for example, right?
Yeah.
And I'll try to become a better person. I'll try to sin less, but Jesus, died for my sins, so I can keep screwing up and feeling bad and drinking booze and doing drugs. So, which is really, I'm not mocking, that's the reality.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens to me now is literally so astounding. So I'll sit in meditation and I have a mantra which is glory be to God in the highest. I got to this point in my meditation, I mean sitting meditation, very Buddhist in my early practices, where you it's really just yourself and nature and discovering layers of self. They get more and more peaceful and more profound, and you start to feel this kind of brightness in the space of the mind. We'll call the halo. You see the halo in religious paintings. And in the beginning, you work really hard to feel that bright mind, that perfect mind state. But now what happens is there's so much supernatural ecstasy that infinitely radiates outwards, and it's so bright, and it's the most pristine joy, but it's perfect joy, and it's perfect love because it's like sunlight. It's not like an emotion that you'll get really high and then woohoo, I have a big adrenaline rush, right? And if I climbed a mountain, I've done all these things. I used to skydive too. And those adrenaline based highs that our culture is an adrenaline culture, right? Like if you flew over a city, you'll see a football field or a soccer field. And then, we have winter sports. And so our sports are adrenaline high based. Part of our level of sports is also concentration based. So if you're like, I used to do long distance running, back when I had a good back, and I used to be a tree planter. So I planted trees for 23 years. And planting trees is a mantra. Like you dig a hole and you bend down, you touch the earth, and you plug a tree into the ground so your fingers are connecting to the earth and you're getting this energy. And I've got to put in 1,500 trees or more 8 feet apart every day, which is the hardest job in the world. It destroys the human body. But it's kind of like a sport, right? Because a long distance runner will pace themselves and get into a pace, and they'll slowly increase. And because you've done a lot of deep breathing, you feel like, when you're running and when you stop, there is this kind of expansion wave that you feel. And so some of our sports take us to an altered state. I mean, there's been studies done on this. And there's also, when you finish like a workout, you'll feel this, whew, like you'll feel this let go for just a moment. In a way, that is kind of like a meditation. Like even if you're lifting weights, you're concentrating, because the first stage of meditation is concentration. And if you concentrate long enough, you start to get, which is a narrow band focus. It's like the edge of a razor blade. And then the mind expands because you're focused. So we have a few remnant rituals left over in our civilization. And sometimes the more athletic people might have less of an addiction problem. A lot of them are heavy drinkers though too, because they'll pound the beers after, right? And when you drink beer, because it contains an herb called hops, hops is a nerve tonic. It's a relaxant, which means it helps you relax. Although it has, because of the alcohol, if it's excessive use, it'll have negative effects. So that's basically what we feel. Now, when I meditate, and I got to this point in meditation where you recognize God is everywhere. You recognize the omnipotence and presence of God, and you go, oh my God, like I will literally look at a color, like the color of my cup, and go, oh my God, blue. Blue is the most incredible thing I've ever seen in my life. Or that orange blanket, which I wrap around myself because I meditate right there. Oh my God, the orange is incredible. And you start to, your halo field starts to merge and merge. And the frequency of the bliss, which is this high that is so good. If I look back at, the cocaine high, I've done ecstasy once, thought it was stupid because it hurt the hell out of my body the next day. Felt like somebody kicked me in the gut. I did all these things when I was very young. And I really wanted to compare them. I think I did marijuana for a couple of years, and then it's like, okay, I'm done with this. This is really foggy. It's high, but it's really buzzy, and it's really foggy, and I don't want to be in
creates
fog.
density.
It's very dense fog, and you
Yeah.
get the munchies, and you laugh, but no, I don't want to be in that state. And as I'm meditating each year more and more and more, I'm also refining which techniques that we interpret from Eastern teachers are really interpreted correctly, and are they really helping me, right? Like if I concentrate too hard, the Buddha calls mindfulness like right mindfulness, right? And what is non-attachment? One of the most misinterpreted understandings in meditation is non-attachment. because non-attachment is in Christian mysticism, right? In a way, the saints renounce the world and they follow what in Buddhism would be the extreme Buddhism, extreme path, where the Buddha goes into the forest and he starves himself for 40 days. Jesus fasted for 40 days. The Buddha fasted for 40 days. And then the Buddha goes, well, that didn't get me enlightened. I got really skinny and I'm almost dead. And then the Buddha leaves those extreme ascetics in the jungles and he finds the middle way, the moderate way. The Catholic saints never found the moderate way, except for some of them, just a few. The Catholic saints like Francis and John on the Cross, I've studied everything I could find in literature on them because I wanted to know their process, their rituals. And they basically starved themselves to death. And they died in their 40s. And they started to hallucinate in the end, and they start to have interior locutions, which is hearing the voice of Christ, and they start to get illumination. But then if you push the body too far, then you're going to start hearing some bad voices. And Francis and John on the Cross went through that.
I agree. I wonder if detachment feels to me, this is my personal perspective or thought on it, is it almost feels like the proper way to incorporate that would be to be objective and non-judgmental, and with that, and maybe detach from ego, and that's what non-judgment or detachment, not to say that's what they were thinking, but for me,
that's really good. No, I think that's pretty good. Like non-attachment in Buddhism is neither clinging nor pushing away, because right mindfulness knows that all feelings, including your emotions, including all sensations, including sexual sensations, they arise, they flutter, and then they disappear, right? So basically, the Buddhist notion is everything is arising and passing. So you don't push things away. You don't push people away. You actually, in Buddhism and Christianity, it was called the ecclesias is it's a Greek word for the community or the coming together, which eventually converts to the word church or community, right? So we form bonds in our community that the Buddha calls the triple gem, which is the Buddha, the Sangha, which is the teaching, the actual practice, and the Sangha is the community. The Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, right? So the Buddha, the Dharma is the teaching, and the Sangha is the community. I kind of got that mixed up. It's been a long time since I visited Buddhism. But so I did those practices for 20 years. And then one day in 1994, October 19th, I had worked and formed a company to try to raise money for this big nuclear fusion scientist from MIT that was building a cubic reactor 3 feet by 3 feet that would produce 1 billion watts of continuous power. And we went around, we had a lot of connections in LA and Aspen and Saudi Arabia. We were trying to get millions of dollars for this project that had a lot of Nobel Prize winners supporting it. Had this thing got funded, we wouldn't need oil at all. Because the scientist who invented it, Bogdan Maglich, said that miniature fusion cells would go in your car and it would power an electric car forever. You'd never even recharge. You don't even need solar power plants, nothing. And believe me, I was involved with this for 20 years.
And is that when you went to the Saudi Arabia?
Yeah.
You were flown to Saudi Arabia, and you were flown the day before 9/11 hit. Is that correct? That's crazy pants. What a blessing.
No, that's 2001. I can't even believe how this happened. My business partner was Middle Eastern, and he worked for the royal family. So I got picked up by second assistant to the king at the back of the long, immigration line, and he just took me right through. I got in, and I had meetings in palaces in Saudi Arabia.
Wow.
And the towers had come down the very next morning. And I
So,
was locked in this basement to protect me because there were Western people being assassinated in the Middle East because they thought we were going to nuke them. And they thought we got to start killing Westerners and get this, you know, get the war started because they thought the retaliation was going to come in the form of a nuclear weapon. So I was in this dark kind of basement. In the middle of the day, I'm sitting down there. Of course, I'm meditating. The Prophet of Islam appears in front of me. And he's so radiant. I'm telling this. See, this is where religions, when they get stuck in the ego, think my religion, my God is the only way to God, and everybody else is wrong. Which is another way we're all participants of war, because that
yes.
consciousness, not allowing other people to have their own way to God, and saying, "Well, I want to convert the whole world to my way." So,
I think that when the statement of there is only one God is true in that
mhm.
all of them are one, not that yours is the one.
Well, there's the way, like in the Gospel of the Egyptians, God is the monad or the singularity, the undivided, indivisible spirit that is infinite. Like it encompasses the whole universe.
Yeah.
And then there are self begotten supreme beings that manifest out of that supreme God, and then which are known as like Christ and Barbello, which is a feminine aspect, Sophia. This is in this particular manuscript. And then a community of countless millions or even billions of enlightened angels are born directly out of them. And then Sophia, which means wisdom in Greek, in feminine, goes down and gives birth to the first egotistical god, known as Yaldabaoth. And Yaldabaoth creates a population of archons underneath him, but he's an egotistical god, so he doesn't feel love and bliss consciousness and unification, right? He feels, I'm a jealous and an angry God, and you will have no gods before me. It sounds familiar, right? Because
Yes.
in the Bible, what we don't see is the battle that the earliest Hebrew prophets went through in the different Jewish. I don't even want to call them Jewish communities because they're not really Jewish yet. They're Canaanite communities were the first settlers in the Palestine, and Canaanites worshipped the god El, and El still is the chief god of the whole Middle East. People just don't know it because the angel that appears to Muhammad to recite the first verses of the Quran to him is Gabriel. So the suffix at the end of his name is attributable to El. And Mike El, Phanuel, all the angels are manifestations of different aspects of El, right? So when the Hebrews define Moses in his experience with the burning bush, and he gets the tetragrammaton, which is the four letters YWHW, which means I am the supreme self, right? They think, oh, when the ego interprets that in literature, it goes, well, that's different than the god of the Canaanites. No, it isn't. It's because the angels of the tetragrammaton, name of God, and in fact, Jesus' original name was four letters. It's four letters. And you can't pronounce them because there's no vowels. It's the same as what we call the Father, which is, in fact, the first letter in Jesus' name is a Y. So you can't really pronounce it. And the earliest pronunciations of Jesus' name are actually Isa, which is the way the Arabs still pronounce it, which strangely, this is going to get really bizarre, in Hebrew, Isa is woman. It just means of the woman. It was actually a very common name in Syria and parts of the Palestine historically. And Isa becomes Jisa because the Greek and the Latin, in fact, the Greeks actually didn't have a J either. It was Isus. There's a soft S at the end. It's really Isa. And then Yeshua is an interpretation of a Hebrew starting with a Y, right? Again, you shouldn't really, his name is really silent. It's really silent. But when you add vowel sounds to it, you change it. So the Hebrew name of God, the YWHW, which is the supreme I am. So we all have our own original emness, like just pure I amness. And that's the point of meditation that I'm talking about. Just settling into your own I am. And in fact, there are meditations where you just focus on amness, I amness, I am, just pure I am. If you just isolate yourself into feeling your own I am, your own I am merges into the universal I am. But then I am, because we added vowels in different cultures, becomes Jehovah, Yahweh, Jah, Allah, right? So, which you're not supposed to do. You can't add the vowels, but we did. And so the ego says, oh, my God's different than yours because it sounds different, right? Mm-hmm. But it isn't. So that's how these cells start to develop and the wars start to form. Like the Prophet Muhammad, again, the angel Gabriel appears to him, which actually on the 16th of March, when
Yes.
3i Atlas was at Jupiter,
Yes.
closest position, is the night of power in Islam, where they celebrate when the angel Gabriel appeared to Muhammad to start enunciating the Quran to him.
And also from where I am, it was also conjunct and aligning to the star Sirius on that day as well.
So, well, Sirius is a huge subject. It's massive because the entire Palestine, the entire even Roman Empire and Greek Empire were absorbing when the Greeks under Alexander the Great and later the Romans conquered the Palestine. They're learning that this goddess of the star Sirius, Isis, is everywhere. She's everywhere. There's statues and shrines to her all over Italy and Rome. That, in fact, by 2nd century of the Common Era, Christianity is still a very small sect. Isis is still everywhere. In Greece, there are statues and shrines to her everywhere. She's up in Turkey. She's even in parts of Gaul, which later become, Great Britain even, which is way higher up, and Spain and France, and she's everywhere. And she is the Lady of Heaven. It's a whole other subject, right? But here's the part that's missing is when the intellect doesn't feel, because it lost the connection to doing these practices, like in the Gospel of the Egyptians, after we hear the story from the singularity of God, the monad, and you come down to the supreme illuminated ones, the Christ that was self-begotten and always existed and never did not exist, which eventually takes birth, and the Sophia Barbello feminine aspect takes birth, and then the egotistical God is born. The egotistical God is always on top of the real God in the Bible. This is John chapter 8. In the canonized Bible, Jesus is telling Jews that the God you're worshiping is a murderer and a liar since the beginning. And he's the father of it. So, a murderer and a liar? You're saying that the God that these Jews are worshiping is a murderer and a liar? Well, yes, because he's showing you that there's a distinction where the egotistical God is always trying to triumph over the position of the real God, which is divine love and unification. And the egotistical God is war. That's why he said he was a murderer and a liar from the beginning. So when you show most Christians this John chapter 8, they'll just come up with some story. Oh, we don't know. Jesus was telling them that they're worshiping the wrong God, so it must have been Baal or something like these. And it's true. There were a lot of Canaanite and early Jewish tribes that were worshiping these different deities. And some of them were really messed up
Yeah.
because there was human sacrifices, kind of like if you come to the Aztec world, the sacrifice of children on the
Yeah.
top of these pyramids, right? So Jesus is trying to clarify. I mean, you're blind, understandably, because humans can't see yet the divine heavens above. And so therefore I'm clarifying for you that there is a real God here in Jerusalem, and the temple has a function of. But the violent God, the angry God, the jealous God, why would God be jealous? You don't need to be jealous. But that God says, no, I'm God. You'll all have to worship me. So we can't see, because when you lose the connection to feel through these
Yes.
practices that are in the Gospel of the Egyptians, the earliest, so when I say Egyptian Christians, when Jesus was born in Bethlehem, Bethlehem was it was on the edge of New Kingdom Egypt. It is inside of New Kingdom Egypt. So Isis, Isa, Isos is the first pronunciation of his name in his language is really so much like Isis. And then the Hebrews later, Isa means woman. Ish means man. Right? So he's of the woman because he doesn't have a father. Joseph is not his biological father. So his name is attributable to of the woman, of the Lady of Heaven. Right?
Have you ever heard of the parthenogenic priestesses?
Um, define that a little more.
They're the women. There were supposedly temples that went from it started with Neith and I think Isis, and there is tale that Mary was one of these, and they had the ability to procreate within and of
Oh
themselves.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I've heard of this. And okay, so Mary Magdalene's temple. So firstly, it was the year 591 that the Pope of the early Catholic Church declared Mary Magdalene was the repentant prostitute. But in 1967 or 68, the new Pope realizes she was from a very wealthy family. She was not a prostitute. And only recently there were two temples discovered at the Sea of Galilee that were her family's Jewish temples that were built. And in 2021 was the second temple discovered. Just how recent this is.
Wow.
And this is in my angles work, which I can actually
Yes.
show.
I
If
would
you,
love to look at that as well. That fascinates me.
well, let me show
Um,
you. I'll pull up my angle so people can see this, because this will show the actual connection of an Egyptian goddess, Isis, at Magdala. At
and is this
the
in France? Sorry to interrupt
No,
you.
no, it's in Israel.
Oh, it is in Israel. Okay.
No, it's in Israel. So I really would like to go there. So I have this huge angles project, and this project is mind blowing.
This is fascinating.
This centers upon. It takes a while to learn this. You have to give me a sharing. I
Oh,
just sent you a
yes.
request to be able to
Got
share
it.
screen.
I hit it.
Okay.
Should be good.
See, I became really passionate about the origins of Christianity and studying all the Gnostic Gospels after Christ appeared to me the first time, which was October of 1994.
Oh,
In
so
Topanga,
you weren't, uh, I see. So your
I
study
was
began,
Buddhist mainly. I was mainly
okay.
Buddhist.
Oh,
And I had met a
interesting.
lot of enlightened teachers. I had traveled to India and did the Dalai Lama's teachings. I met Tulkus, and I've met a lot of Buddhist masters from different traditions of Buddhism, and I've met a lot of and studied with many Hindu masters. And when I went to India, the first teacher I was with was known as Papaji, Punjaji. And Punjaji's meditation method was the self-inquiry, like searching in who am I is the inverse of I am, right? Who am
Mm-hmm.
I am. It's coming to your own tetragrammaton, your own connection from your tetragrammaton to the universal
And
self.
can you define tetragrammatron?
Tetragrammaton is four letters. So the four
Okay.
letters of God are the YWHW in
Okay.
the ancient Hebrew. And Jesus' original name was a tetragrammaton,
Okay.
right?
It's not
But
in like
what
a
we
shape,
know,
it's the letters in
it's the
specific
letters
letters.
which don't breathe because there's no vowels. And you're not supposed to pronounce it.
Oh.
Yet it's kind of against the law to pronounce it, but they do. So they broke the law, right? And that's how
Oh.
myth forms, right? Because when one person adds different vowels to it, even a Rastafarian says Ja, which is
Mm-hmm.
Yahweh, right? But again, it's supposed to be really a meditation. It means I am. So the function of the tetragrammaton is to go into your own who am I process. So my first
Mm.
teacher in India, and I knew what I was getting into. I mean, he was an enlightened being. He's a really powerful guy. Um, Papaji,
Mm-hmm.
he would, no matter what, he would get you to laugh your ass off. And he does it not by humor, by his field. And I was really stubborn. I mean, I hung out at the ashram every day, and I was, lived in this house with all these disciples, and I'm like, they told me I could have my private meeting with him, and I'm like, I don't even want to meet him because I don't think he's enlightened, and I'm meditating every day in India, and I spent a whole month at the ashram, and finally, one day, in the middle of the night, I don't know why, I just couldn't stop laughing because he slowly gets into it's like a baker baking bread, right? And the baker is the heat, and you're the bread, and it's going to get you. And Papaji got everybody. They just start laughing, and you think, what are these people laughing at? Because he's getting inside of you, because he's mastered the tetragrammaton. He's a tetragrammaton master,
Wow.
and he's not Jewish, of course. He's Hindu, and so eventually I left to go to Bodh Gaya to the tree where all the Buddhists come every year to do these prostrations on these wooden boards. It's a really incredible ritual that I've never seen in Western Buddhism. They have these really smooth, beautiful wood boards, and they have a cloth, and they just do prostrations. They slide up and down the board all day. Never
Wow.
seen that in the West.
Hmm.
And so I hung out at the Bodhi tree for a while, and I was freezing because it was winter. And I was staying in a grass hut, and Papaji appeared to me. And of course, he's in Lucknow, India, at his ashram, and he said, "You better wake up and put your blankets on because you're going to freeze to death." And I went, "Whoa, this guy was powerful. He was really powerful." That's the only miracle I've ever witnessed in India aside from all the mosquitoes at the Bodhi tree at night were eating me alive, and as soon as the Tibetans started chanting, all the mosquitoes left. That was another miracle I
Oh,
witnessed.
that's good. I got to tell my mom that.
The mosquitoes couldn't handle the vibrations of all the Buddhist chanting. It was really
Hmm.
incredible. And then I went
Wow.
all the way across the north by train to Rishikesh and then the Dalai Lama. And then
Wow.
I did the Dalai Lama's teaching. So when I meet Christ, he blows everybody away. This is why I'm kind of giving the build up. His level of enlightenment is beyond anything. And when I say I saw him, I really saw him in Topanga, California. He blinded me. His level of love and the frequency of the power. He's at a whole other level than the enlightened mystics that we've been exposed to in the West.
Mhm.
We have met Ram Dass, and hung out with Ram Dass, and very profound stuff. His teacher was Neem Karoli Baba, who's one of these Babas, these old guys in India who were really heavily enlightened beings. My stance is, I'm not trying to convert people to Christianity unless they want to, but I've met Christ and I've met all the Buddhist masters. There's too many names for the different Buddhist teachers that I've been with. All of them are very significant. All of them have really good teachings to teach a person to get into resonance. But once you meet Christ, you really meet him, it's over. Like, he really is the king of the masters. I don't think he judges. From what he told me, there's no judgment. There's no judgment cast on anybody. He's way beyond judgment. It's vibration. So when Jesus showed me, when you die, the universe knows. You can try to enter one of the high heavens, but what he showed me is it's going to open your heart so big. And he said most of the people who try to approach the higher heavens, they get afraid because they're not ready to be that blissed out yet. They want to come down several notches. So you have a first heaven, and then a second heaven, and a third. And you slowly progress and get higher.
And I love that. And so you were in Topanga, which is in California.
Yeah.
So it's
you're in San Diego,
Los Angeles.
You're in San Diego, yeah. So
I'm in Oregon at the moment, but I grew up in San Diego.
Well, I lived in Oregon because I lived at Osho's community for a whole year.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's there's a lot going on over there.
Oh, yeah. He had awesome meditations. Like, his meditations were so good at opening you up. Mm-hmm. You know, what people did after they would do the group therapies and the meditations is, some people were really authentic and some people really took advantage of the situation. But that's another story.
Can you show the angles? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The angles. So, yeah.
This I'm just fascinated with, because this will bring us into like a cosmic perspective on how the universe is just divinely orchestrating something beautiful. It's not coincidence, if you will.
Well, you'll see that what I've done with my Angles project is you're seeing everything from above. And when you understand what this region is, of course, this is the war, right? Meaning this is, Iran is over here, this is Saudi Arabia, and this is the Sinai down here, where there's 3 different Mount Sinai. So what happens is the Great Pyramid, actually, let me stop sharing this first because there's something else you need to see before this. And then we can always do another session and go deeper because we have an hour today, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay, so let me go to this. See, really what we know about the Palestine and the different religions that have manifested there is there have been many wars of movements to try to conquer the territory of the temple, and which is Jerusalem. Why? Because the Prophet Muhammad, his experience of going through the 7 levels of heavens is a dome of rock, and which is right there on the temple grounds where the Jerusalem Solomonic Temple 1 and 2 were, and where Jesus was crucified and resurrected. It's all there. But the dimensions of the original temple was a tent. It was called the tabernacle. And the tabernacle, Holy of Holies, where the Ark of the Covenant and the 12 staffs for the 12 tribes were kept, was a 10 by 10 cubit tent, which had a rectangle tent of 10 by 20 cubits called the Holy Place. That's the first temple. It was not Solomon's temple. Solomon's temple was not the first temple. And those measurements are identical to the Great Pyramid's Queen's Chamber is 10 cubits, and the King's Chamber is 10 by 20 cubits, which is exactly the same dimensions. And that's because the God who gave the dimensions as the architect, because God is an architect. If you read your Bible, everything is measured from Noah's Ark to, the tabernacle, to the Holy of Holies, to the new temple that Ezekiel saw in visions with God. So Solomon builds the Holy of Holies double. So he makes it 20 cubits. And the holy place is 20 by 40. He doubles the dimensions. And so the Jerusalem temple here, at summer solstice, if you're at the Giza pyramids, where the interior temple is the same, the sun will rise exactly at 26 degrees to the east, which will intersect the three pyramids at Giza and the Jerusalem, including Bethlehem, the birthplace of Christ, because it's only a tad below Jerusalem. They receive the sun. Now, and the sun will set at 26.3 degrees to the west. And that is going to be an important angle for us, because that's going to run right through. This is the sacred angle to the Egyptians, because the interior passage, as you're going up to enter the Queen's Chamber and the King's Chamber, is 26 degrees. So this is
I've been through there. You can no longer go into the pyramid. Is that correct? Like as a tourist?
Well, right now with the war, I don't even know how, Egypt has to protect tourists because I have a friend who's there right now, one of the people in my inner circle who's a student of my frequency practices. So I have an inner circle. People pay $50 a month to learn these techniques directly from me, which I've been doing for many years. Yes. So now when you come to the winter solstice, on the winter solstice, the sun will, if you're at Jerusalem temple, it will set at Cairo, at the three pyramids. So it's the inverse, which proves these two temples are temples of the God of the Israelites, the God of the Bible. And remember, your first Christians are effectively converting to Judaism. So when the Gentile people outside of the Jewish community are becoming Christian, because most of the first Christians are actually Jewish. Jesus had thousands of Jewish followers in the region. It's not like they all wanted him crucified. It was only Herod who created a movement because he wanted to be the king of the Jews. He didn't want this other guy, who could perform miracles and was highly, highly blissed out and affecting people with his consciousness. No, so that's what that's really about. So this actually proves, this is my discovery given to me by God, that these temples are connected. And of course, 3i Atlas, this is very famous. When it produced this long jet, it was a perfect 26 degrees, which is the sacred angle inside of the pyramid, right? And the Dendera bulbs at the Dendera temple, this is really huge stuff, are also, these bulbs are tilted at 26 degrees. I actually had to have a friend go there in person and measure those. So now I'm going to show you, because we only have 10 minutes left, and maybe next time we can go deeper into the angles, because I'm going to show you Mary Magdalene's temple. Okay, so this complex here, so this is the 26 degree line. So my center point here is the Great Pyramid. All my lines are intersecting from the Great Pyramid because I know that's God's temple. And there's a reason why these three pyramids are, my research into these three pyramids, it will take several sessions for people to get this. But the line that runs, which was discovered by Peter Lemaitre, known as the Bethlehem angle, is the 26 degree line that comes here. See? So Jesus' birth, the 26 degrees to the east, which is the rising position. Continue that line, it runs right through where he was baptized. So this means this line at 26 degrees is one profound angle. It's not just about the rising and setting sun. They're tracking something in the heavens for John the Baptist to have been stationed here on this line, he's looking at something in the heavens, the real Star of Bethlehem. Because if I go to the setting angle to the west on that line will run right through, here it is, Fatima, Portugal, right here. 26 degrees to the west, where the miracle of the sun happened at Fatima in 1917, which means a hyperdimensional planet eclipsed the sun at 26 degrees to the west. And it's not the sun itself, because the sun on October 13th, 1917, when the miracle of the sun happened, this is a huge story, the miracle of the sun, which I will have to go into further, because I want to go to Mary Magdalene's temple right now. That's what I want to do. Because Mary Magdalene's temple is Isis. Okay, so this is what's known as the angle of resurrection in ancient Egypt is it's between 38 and 39 degrees, and this angle leaving the pyramid, this is an incredible angle, runs right through the Coptic Church of Mother Mary in the district of Cairo called Zaytun, where in 1968, okay, so this is the same year that the Pope declares Mary Magdalene was never a prostitute. And yet most Catholics today don't even know this. They still think she was a prostitute. Western Christians still think she's a prostitute because the Catholic Church never changed, and they didn't do a very good job of the announcement in 1967, 68, when that position was being reversed by the Pope. So this angle of 38 to 39 degrees is the leftover angle. So if I take a 90-degree corner and I take the just under 52-degree angle of the Great Pyramid, the leftover angle is 38 degrees and change, between 38 and 39 degrees. So remember, I'm going to my rising position, and my rising position on that angle is going to run right through Nazareth, where Jesus was conceived at this angle. And the Sea of Galilee, he appears in his resurrected body 3 times. 3 times. So why is he appearing in his resurrected body at the same angle that he was conceived at, which is known as resurrection angle in Egypt? This gets really deep, which then intersects with the temple of Mary Magdalene's family temple, the Magdala Temple Complex, which is a very new discovery. See, Magdala's Chapel. And this complex of temples, it was written up in the Smithsonian Magazine. This is a very wealthy family. She is no prostitute. She's a very divine person, and most likely the partner of Jesus Christ, which is very clear in the Gospel of Philip, because it illustrates him kissing her often in front of the apostles. Now, what's even more amazing is in Giza and the pyramids in the ancient world, their calendar was based on the star Sirius when it would rise paired with sunrise, known as heliacal rising of Sirius. At the time of Christ, the heliacal rising of Sirius was the 19th of July, down here. But as you go further north, the date moves forward. Guess what the date of heliacal rising is at the Magdala Temple, where Mary Magdalene was born and raised? July 22nd, at the time of Christ. That's Mary Magdalene's feast day. That's Sirius heliacal rising at Magdala.
Wow.
At the time of Christ. Now today, it is August the 6th.
So they changed the date?
No, it's because of nobody changed the date. It's our calendar is drifting because because even though we have leap year every 4 years, we're still off every 150 something years. We lose another day. So
Understood.
so our calendar slides. My wife died. Which is a huge story, because I know that was one of the questions you wanted to go into.
I do. I have.
Yeah.
Do you have a little more time?
Hmm.
Or should we
I
cut
want to
this?
leave. Like, we'll just leave it. We should do these at 1 hour because
Yes. Okay.
because because of people's attention span. I mean, I try to keep
Yes.
my own webinars at 1 hour.
Okay, perfect.
Serious. My wife died on August the 9th, 2021. Serious helical rising at the Vatican, where in St. Peter's Square, it's really, this is just incredible, is the same day she died, August the 9th. So if I go to the Vatican, um, I'm not sure if I have it. Right, that's probably it. Is this my Vatican line? If you go to the Vatican, you go to St. Peter's Square, you'll see why that. Yeah, that's St. Peter's. That's St. Peter's. If you go to St. Peter's Square, you will see an Egyptian obelisk imported from Heliopolis, a district of Cairo to the north. That's an Egyptian hieroglyph. Sorry, an obelisk,
Hmm.
which the Washington Monument is an obelisk. And the Dome of St. Peter's here is the height of the Great Pyramid of Egypt to only a couple of feet in inaccuracy. Designed by Michelangelo. He's one of the chief architects. So this is a representation of the Great Pyramid, and this is an Egyptian obelisk, and Sirius helical rising on the current calendar is the 9th of August, which is the date my wife chose to die. And then from the other side, she gives me the model mathematically of the orbits of the invisible hyperdimensional 9 level planets of the 9 levels of the angels. And that's a huge story. And
I
I
can't
have a
wait to do
book,
that.
everybody. I mean, if you just go to I have two websites, davidsereda.co and davidseredawrites.com. You'll see my book Visions about my encounters with Christ. So it's such a huge story that I have to tell. Like there's the process of interior illumination, which conquers all suffering, all the pain I've been through in my life, losing my wife and raising our two daughters alone at my age is one task, because I'm going to be 65 this year, and I've got a 10-year-old and I've got a 15-year-old, and we're surviving as a family without her, but yet she has sent back this clear mathematical formula. She calls out my name 591 days after she dies, which is, if you take 591 divided by the golden ratio, 1.618, you get the orbit of Earth. 365.258 days is the orbit of Earth. And it turns out, 3i Atlas, it's bullseye. It's bullseye. It came closer than anything. I'll show this in my screen share just for a minute. The bullseye of 3i Atlas was 591. It's pointing directly at the biblical New Earth. This is where the New Earth is. 3i Atlas was showing us exactly where it is. And this is where it is. I'm going to try and see if I can find my 591 article here. I got so many articles. Anyway, I what I did is I can't differentiate which is the right article. If you go to my Medium page, you can read these. It's medium.com/@David and you can check those out. But we'll have to show that later. So 3i
Oh, that
Atlas
sounds great.
was the same number. I got this number and I started lecturing about it, and I built a model. I can show you the model of the hyperdimensional solar system, and this model literally resolved perfectly the miracle of the sun at Fatima, Portugal in 1917. It explains the orbit of a unknown planet that actually caused the miracle of the sun at Fatima in 1917. I'm just trying to find my model here. I may not be able to find that.
Yeah, so just to clarify and simplify what you're saying is that you have had communication with your wife after she passed, and she gave you a specific number, and
A formula, yeah.
through calculations you've discovered a hyperdimensional planet that even is connected with the temple of Fatima. Is that
Well,
what you said?
Fatima is a.
Not Fatima.
There's a church at Fatima, Portugal, marking the spot where in 1917 the Mother Mary appeared to these three village children who were Catholic kids, who on the 13th of May was the first appearance. And she gets the community ready of nearly 100,000 people for the 13th of October, when it's very clear that some planet has eclipsed our sun that is not Venus, it's not the moon, we don't know what it was because nobody really understood hyperdimensional the idea of a hyperdimensional solar system. So when I took my wife's calculation from the other side, which is the number 591 to the golden ratio, it builds 9 extra planets that resolves the orbits of all the planets to the golden ratio, which no astronomer's ever done. I have a whole article on this on my Medium page, mathematically perfectly, and it shows a planet with an orbit of 139 and a half days. And if I in the formula,
Can you
and
define hyperdimensional?
well, it means those planets are in a state of vibration that we can't see with our telescopes, but they can appear in our dimension momentarily and then go out of phase. It's like you're a fish underwater and somebody drops a ball and you see it under the water and then it goes back to the surface, right? It's like we're under the water. So the mathematical orbit of that planet, let me just show you this because you'll probably understand this and then I'll have to go. So let me go to, I use this online calculator. Okay, so this will work. So if I take 591 divided by the golden ratio, I get Earth. Divided by the golden ratio again, I get Venus's orbit. Divided by the golden ratio again, I get a planet of 139 and a half days. So May 13th, I'll put in the year here, 1917, is when Mother Mary, the first date she appeared to the kids. So I'm just going to subtract the orbit of this planet in the formula, which is 139 days. Bingo, I just landed on Christmas Day. And Christmas Day is 3 days after winter solstice. So it's the marker of the new sun for the new year, right? And this is incredibly profound because this is in her formula. I just resolved the miracle of the sun at Fatima. If you're not familiar with Fatima, there's a good movie that was released some years ago, not very many years ago, called Fatima. And you can watch the movie for people who are not familiar with the story. When these three kids tell their parents that the Lady of Heaven just appeared to them, and they get in a lot of trouble with the church, and the community thinks these kids are making this up. And then on the 13th of the month of every month, so May 13th, June 13th, July 13th, August 13th, September, and then October 13th is when the sun does this huge display of unbelievable colors and strobing, and it's there's this disk that crosses the sun, which is this hyperdimensional planet, that the orbit of which is between Venus and Mercury. And it's a high heaven planet. So there's actually 9 of these planets. 591 is actually the new Earth, which means it has an orbit of 591 days, right?
That is so fascinating. Do you have a background in mathematics or physics?
Well, I took physics in grade 11 and 12, and then I ended up working for this legendary physicist, Bogdan Magdalene, on nuclear fusion, on bomb and contraband detection systems. And it's a huge story. His fusion story, if the people I reached out to, I mean, I had access to the richest people in Aspen, the Middle East. In fact, we had access to everybody. Nobody wanted to help. And the Air Force at Kirtland Air Force Base in New Mexico did a private study, military study, using the equivalent of AI animation software in computers called Super Cray 2s to build his machine and see if it was going to work. And according to the study, the Democrats classified the study so that the investor community couldn't see it, and it was supposed to work. It's very small. It's only a cubic meter, and produce a continuous billion watts of power using a non-radioactive nuclear fuel cycle.
That's
So
incredible.
Swiss Aluminum, the Saudis, they put in a few $1 million in this thing to barely inch it along. And my company was trying to get him the full funds he needed. And I had access to Hollywood. I got turned down by, yes, Jane Fonda, Robert Redford, Sally Field in Hollywood. We got turned down by Michael Jackson's company. And so then when I went to Aspen, my friend Nancy Pfister, and her story is a huge story, she opened me up to everybody. I sat in the house of George Stranahan, who was her godfather, who just sold Champion spark plugs, and he had $500 million in cash. And he's showing me all his Native American art in his house. And she's saying, would you give us the money for Magwich's machine? And he went on to tell us why he wasn't going to do that. And he was really old, right? George was really old. I just went from Nancy Pfister introduced me to everybody. She eventually gets murdered in her own house, which is a huge story all over the news because she was a very high profile family. Everybody turned her down. And then I had access to John Denver because Nancy Pfister's one of her best friends was John Denver's wife, Cassandra Denver. And we got turned down everywhere. No, nobody wanted this. So today, this war would not be happening if anybody just gave us the money. Nobody wanted to give us the money. So, because according to the physicist who invented it, and I know the whole machine very well. Like, if you go on my website at davidsereda.co, you can see I build these magnetic field frequency tuning systems that can tune your
Yes.
whole house and change the vibration of your whole house or a whole building,
Yes.
which helps elevate, the vibrations of your space for healing and for higher states of consciousness. But basically, I know how the machine works. And I was part of the group. I was part of the Advanced Physics Corporation, and I was a shareholder, and I was also one of the speakers in the U.S. Congress in 1994 trying to get the Democrats to fund this, and they turned us down. They blocked us. In fact, the Democrats, if we had an investor interested, they had a person in the Department of Energy that would phone call that investor and say, do not invest in this. And we had to deal with that.
Well,
Can you
they were
believe
just
that?
blocking
Freaking
you
Democrats did
from all
this.
angles. They were blocking
We were
you.
being attacked from all angles because we would destroy the oil industry, completely destroy it. And you would need no solar panels. In fact, I did the communications at NASA with a guy. He was the head of all technology at NASA. His name was Earl Van Landingham. And I spent hours with Earl. Earl wanted NASA to fund this because Earl understood the science. Earl Van Landingham was the head of all space access and technology and propulsion at NASA in those days. And Earl told me, we're so tired of these solar panels on the space station. We want more power up here. Fund this thing. And nope, because the Democrats told the head of NASA, you can't fund that. We got blocked. We wouldn't have a war right now. I spent 20 years, which is half of my adult employment term in my life fighting for this technology to get funded. I went everywhere. So then I'm on a plane going to Saudi Arabia to ask the royal family for money because nobody here wanted to do anything. It's pathetic. It's absolutely freaking pathetic. And now we're fighting. Like, look at Cuba. They're still producing electricity with diesel engines, and that's why they have no power because nobody wanted to put in like $50 million into this? Oh no, that's just so much money. Oh my God, we can't do that.
Yeah,
So
I really hope that those controllers are on their way to, I don't want to say out, but I really hope that people like you, people begin practicing and exploring their spirituality, their connection. I hope that through all of us doing it in this synergetic way, that we're going to dissolve those controller, just the way things are run, whether it's the drug companies, the power systems, the political systems. They have no place in the future as they are in this moment. It just, nothing that they're doing makes sense. Nothing that they're doing is healing us. Nothing that they're
Yeah.
doing is assisting us in getting along with one another and moving into that loving state of being. Um, yeah, I really love, honor, and respect you and the work that you do, and for communicating and putting things out there the way that you do.
Thank
Uh,
you so much,
it really
Brandon.
has helped me in my ascension path, and I I want to include all your links in the
Yeah.
descriptions below,
Okay.
and would love to have a part two of this conversation if you're open, and go into detail about these hyper dimensional planets and 3i atlas, and how its trajectory through our solar system looks clearly calculated and
Clearly.
planned by some type of intelligence versus a random rock just flying around the solar system.
Oh no, it showed up at Mars on Yom Kippur. I mean,
Yes.
every planet. I mean, it was closest to Earth at Christmas. I mean, it. Every religion, Buddhism. In fact, it will be closest to Saturn. It will be crossing Saturn's orbit on
Oh,
on the the birth the celebration date of Mary Magdalene's feast date, which is the
really?
22nd of July. So the 19th, which is Ceres
Wow.
Heelko rising on the old calendar, it will be at Saturn from the
So we have
19th to the
one.
22nd.
Wow, thank you
Every
for bringing
planet,
that
every
up.
single planet is a major religion. And I have it all charted out. I mean, maybe next time we can do that. So,
I would love to do
in a
that.
way, it's a great unifier, right? It's showing you
Yes.
where the vibration of that religion calibrates at in in the system. So we have 9 visible planets, and then we have 9 planets of the angels, which were discovered. In fact, the earliest mystic, Dante, who wrote this book, the Paradiso, he describes going through the 9 levels of the angelic heavens. Um, First, the 9 levels of the 9 planets as heavens, and then 9 more heavens of representative of the 9 levels of the angels. So there's 2 sets
And
of nines.
the nine, sorry to interrupt you. I just want to, the nine hyperdimensional planets, you figured out the orbits of those
Yeah,
as
I know
well.
their orbit, so I know when they're
That's
active, when they're
incredible.
influencing us. And so for 3i Atlas, its bullseye is right at 591. This number, so that's an orbit just inside the orbit of Mars. So it's warmer than Mars because Mars is too cold. Earth is getting too hot. So I call it the Goldilocks zone, and it's saying here, look here. The prophet Isaiah said, "We look for the new heavens and the new earth." We look means we have to look. We have to be awake. They're there. You can't see them. We have all these UFOs coming from invisible spaces to visible spaces and then back to invisible spaces. You know, it's like a cat and mouse game. There is a higher dimensional order to this solar system. And the poet Dante was the first one. I can't see. And the miracle of the sun at Fatima was the first event when it visited us. There was one event earlier than that, which was called Planet Vulcan. But we'll have to do
I
a
know.
whole presentation on this. Yeah.
I am just
I
like,
want to see how your viewers respond to this.
well, I don't have too many, but
Mm-hmm.
there will be many.
Yeah, there will be many.
There will be many, but the point is, thank you. I am so grateful for you. And it's just, you're just making these beautiful discoveries. And thank you for putting it in language that is provable, if you will, because
Yeah,
some of us already know, we feel this, we can sense things. And I think that language exists in those meditation states. And so um, sometimes I sense things, but just to be able to put it in a way that our minds can look at, and it helps me to communicate to my friends, my family, some of these concepts and ideas. But I didn't know about the hyperdimensional planets, but
No, nobody did. It didn't look
that's
like I
awesome.
said.
That's
Planet
so
Vulcan
awesome.
was the first. The Miracle of the Fatima was the second. And then my wife's mathematical formula
God
resolves
bless.
Fatima perfectly. You think I'd get a call from the Catholic Church, but they won't call. But I see it now. I understand the whole thing, even mathematically. There's nine
Yes.
invisible hyperdimensional. They're vibrating at a frequency that we just can't perceive. But when we leave the
Yeah.
body, we will see them, and that's what Dante describes in here. His beautiful epic journey in the Paradiso of the nine levels of the first level of paradise, and then the untouchable level of the enlightened beings. You can call them angels or where the enlightened beings reside. Is all in his vision. Now we know the orbits, and they resolve
Wow.
the miracle of the sun at Fatima, which is the miracle of the sun at Fatima is probably one of the most powerful events that have happened in the 20th century.
Well, I'm going to
Absolutely.
watch that movie now
Watch Fatima,
and
yeah.
just digest everything that you've said. My heart is filled with joy from this conversation. And thank you so much, David. I'll make sure to
Sure.
put all of your contact and all of your links in the description. And to my viewers, thank you for tuning in. I love you, and there's good things ahead.
Good things ahead. Okay,
Good
thanks,
things
Brent.
ahead.
Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.